Oh, can I have some coffee?
Yeah. All right, we're going to go ahead and just kind of kick things off. If you could join the chat on the in Zoom, there's a chat button on the toolbar, and just type in, a greeting. Let me know where you're connecting from, and as other people come in, if you could just ask them to do the same. We have a bunch of people who signed up for this. Greetings, Nancy from Carmichael, and it's just kind of nice to know where folks are coming in from. And Gwen from Arizona, Queen Creek. Not sure where that is, but that sounds cool. Linda from San Jose. Awesome. All right, it's 7 o'clock, and I'm Jeff Hester from Social Hiker and founder of the Six Pack of Peaks Challenge series. I am a longtime user of GPS apps for both planning my hikes and for tracking my hikes. So I use that for trail guides that I write. I also use it as a tool for when I'm navigating a new trail that I haven't been on before. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to switch between my laptop and my phone when it's appropriate. So we're going to start on my laptop, and I'm going to just talk a little bit about our agenda. We want to talk about some of the differences between the free and paid versions of AllTrails. What is AllTrails? What's now known as AllTrails Plus. A year ago, it was called AllTrails Pro, and then sometime in 2022, they rebranded as AllTrails Plus. Same idea, but I think what they kind of realized was that by calling it AllTrails Pro, it made it sound like maybe it wasn't for people who were new to hiking or new to AllTrails, that it was like some extra thing that you need to be like a pro level, backpacker or something like that. And that's really not what it's about. We'll talk about how you can use AllTrails on a computer for planning your hikes, and then how they work together. So once you have an AllTrails account, how you can use your computer to do sort of like research and planning, and then how you can sync that with your phone so it knows like what your saved routes are, and how to download maps, some of the things that are available in AllTrails Plus. For those who are just joining now, if you could, please in the chat, just let me know where you're joining from, and we're going to go through this agenda. We'll talk about all of the things that you can do on your laptop. We'll talk about some of the comparisons between AllTrails and Gaia GPS, which is actually, I've used Gaia GPS longer than I've used AllTrails, and I'll just talk a little bit about some of the features there and why you might use one or the other. I think that they're both very, very comparable. So a lot of the things that we'll talk about are going to like translate fine to other apps. They have a lot of similarities. We'll talk about some of the 3D features that are available in AllTrails Plus that are pretty cool, for you to be able to visualize what you're going to be hiking, when and why you still want to carry a paper map, and how to get those, and then I'll give you my opinions on some of the reviews. My little smiley wink emoji there will give you some clue. And at the end, we're going to have a little quiz, or one question quiz, a little contest. And whoever can come up with the answer first in the chat is going to win a 1-year subscription to AllTrails Plus, which is good. If you're just using AllTrails free, you can redeem that and get a year of AllTrails Plus. If you're already using AllTrails Plus, you can use that to extend your subscription for an additional 12 months. All right, and as I go along, if you have any questions or anything, go ahead and you can put those in the chat, or you can like raise your hand, and I'll try to keep an eye on the video window. So if somebody raises their hand, I can pause and answer that question. All right, let's jump into AllTrails. So AllTrails, if you go to alltrails.com, you will see the Explore. You can start with Explore, and this is going to give you a chance to kind of see the area that it thinks you're in. Because of my internet provider, for some reason, it always thinks I'm in Portland, which I'm not. But that's not a big deal. You can type in a location. It could be anywhere. It could be Phoenix, Arizona, and we can type that in, and it's going to zoom right over to that and start showing me trails that I can do. These are curated trails by default. And on the left-hand side, you're going to see an account. There's 466 that are in my view that are considered curated trails. There's also this other little tab that's a lot of people don't even think about to look behind, called community content. These are trails that are not curated. They haven't been sort of vetted by an employee or employees at AllTrails. And so you know, sort of buyer beware. And if we click on that, you can see there's over 1,000 things there, and they're all over the place. So this could just be anything from like a walk in the city, 1.9 miles, or, you know, something like a 50-mile loop that this person did in these mountains right here. So lots of different things you can do. Most of the time, we're going to look at these curated trails and just kind of see what that does. You can see that I'm an AllTrails Plus subscriber. It is free to join and use AllTrails. You don't have to pay anything for the website or the app. There's benefits to signing up and logging in, because you can start to save things and favorite and bookmark things. And that's a huge part of the planning process for me. So for myself, I might go in and say, yeah, Camelback via Echo Canyon. I want to bookmark that. So I can just click the little bookmark thing. I can create multiple lists, and I could add that to my, for example, my 2 hike list. I can add it to multiple lists. And I don't know, I could add it to my favorites, and then I could say done. And now you can see the little bookmark icon for that hike is colored in green, which means that I've added it to I've saved it to one of my lists. And you can see some of the popular trails here on the left. I can also zoom in, you know, so I could go into a particular area and like the Superstition Mountains, and I'm going to see other things start to pop up. And you can see the trail. If there's multiple, you'll see a little number next to it, and I can kind of like page through those and get an idea of where that hike is and what it's about. And if I want to go out and actually explore that one, I can simply click on it, and it goes to the details for that particular hike. In this case, the Hieroglyphic and Lost Gold Mine East Loop. And it's an 11.6 mile loop. I can see the total elevation gain. I can see the elevation profile and what that looks like. In this case, they were going in a clockwise direction. They hit Superstition Mountain and kind of went all the way around, all the way back to the trailhead. So pretty big hike there. A few things that you'll see that are plus features, and these are all sort of identified with this little blue hexagon with a plus symbol in it. And one of them is preview the trail. So if I click this, it's going to switch to a satellite view, and this is a lot of fun. It goes into a 3D mode and starts just, you can see where where we're going here. So we're kind of climbing up through this wash into this canyon. We bend around, keep climbing. Gets really steep up to the ridge. We hug the ridge, cruise around, up, hit the summit of Superstition Mountain, and then kind of hug the ridge going back down. And it's going to follow, basically give us an idea of like what we're signing up for, when you go and look at this thing. So this preview is a really neat way to be able to kind of see, the trail before you do it. And you can see there's some tips here. Like I can, zoom in and out if I wanted to. I can rotate. So I can kind of interact with it. And then when I'm ready to continue, I can, just press the arrow button and start it again. And so the preview is kind of a nice, really neat little feature to be able to see what your trail might look like, where the climbs are and that sort of thing. That's a plus feature. Another plus feature that I think is really valuable. I will talk a little bit more about this, but paper maps are super important. You can actually print maps if you have an AllTrails Plus subscription, and you go to this More menu, and you'll see down here the blue hexagon with the plus symbol for print a PDF map. And basically, it's going to give you, like you can define what the page size you want to do. It's letter or legal or whatever. What the orientation you want to use, like I could say landscape. And then basically I can kind of zoom in and out and position this map to get the scale or the detail that I want. And then I can download a PDF. I can go ahead and print that. And then I have something that I can take with me. So if my phone battery dies, for example, I still have something to reference. Now, the detail on these particular maps is not necessarily the greatest, but it's something that comes with AllTrails Plus, and it can be useful. So just be aware that that feature is available, and you can do that. You can actually go in and define like a scale that you would like to do. You can define whether you want to show UTM or grid, or I'm not going to go into all the details behind that, but you can always learn more from the interface right on there. And this is something that you really wanted to use a laptop or a desktop computer to do. Okay, let's go back out. And we'll go back. So here's my overview of that particular hike. That's the print PDF. Preview trail, both of those are plus features. Another thing that we can do, so if I choose, I want to download this route. Let's see, I can download the GPS data in a lot of different formats. So if for example, I preferred to use a different application like Gaia GPS, I can actually download the GPS extract and then import that into Gaia and use Gaia to do my navigation or whatever. A few of the ways that you might think about using this for planning hikes and so forth is first of all, just using the save feature. So you can save it, you can create lists. You can decide whether that list is public or private, or for your followers only. So they have that whole social network thing going, but I could say this might be private to me. And, I might call this my Phoenix to hike list, or something like that. Things that I want to add to that, and I can add this hike, and now it's in that particular list. This is where it's really nice because your phone, my phone's not showing up here, but your phone, the app on your phone and that when you're logged into AllTrails will know this. It'll know what lists and what things you've saved so that it synchronizes, and that's pretty handy. The other thing that's really fun to do is that if we go back to, let's say, we'll go to Bend, Oregon as an example. So it's going to list, a bunch of different trails, but I'm going to say I want to just explore the map. And again, you'll see one of the AllTrails Plus features is I can filter this by the distance away from where I am, and or from where I entered Bend, Oregon. So it's going to use Bend, Oregon as a center, and I can say, well, I want it has to be, you know, within a certain number of miles from where I am. And as I move this, you can see that the number of trails is going to change. So that's if you're looking to do some training hikes, for example, and you wanted to do something that's within a certain number, you know, it's got to be within, let's say 20 miles. I can click that, and now I've filtered by that, and I've got a shorter list. I can say I want it to be hiking, not biking. I could say I want it to be a certain length, like a minimum of 10 miles, but you know, no more than 15. And now I'm getting really specific. So now I'm down to 11 trails within that area. I can look at, do I want to bring my dogs with me? So I want a dog-friendly hike. 9 trails. So I'm really kind of narrowing it down. The map will let me, you know, see trails where they are located on the map. And then on the left-hand side is just a list. So the 9 trails that match all of these criteria, Phil's Trail, the Deschutes River Trail from the Lava Island Trailhead, 13.2 miles. Badlands Rock, Flatiron, Ancient Juniper, 11.3 miles. And so on. So there's, you know, Benham Falls, you know, some different options here that you can go and do that kind of match my criteria. Right now I'm training, my wife and I are training. We're going to be doing a hike across the country of England in 2 weeks. And we're leaving in 2 weeks, and we're taking a little bit more than 2 weeks to do this. But we've got 192 miles and 27 or 28,000 feet of climbing. So we're looking at what kind of trails are going to help us train for that, for the vertical gain and the mileage that we're going to be doing on a regular basis. So this is a great way for you to kind of find those. And similarly, like if you're doing something like the 6-Pack of Peaks Challenge, you might be thinking, well, you know, right now the higher elevations are all snowed in. I want to make sure that my body's physically prepared. How can I train while I'm waiting for the snow to melt? Or how can I make sure that I'm ready to jump on the trail as soon as they're open? So this is a great way for you to do that, is just simply going through, finding some things and doing it that way. The other thing that you can do is you can actually draw your own trails. You can like create your own. So if I go to like my maps, I can go in and let's see, this button on the lower left, create map. I can start to create a route, you know, that is something that maybe doesn't exist yet in AllTrails, or not in the form that I want. So if I wanted to do a hike in the Badlands Wilderness, for example, I can click draw on map. I pick the color of my route, and I can pick, there's some little options here, but I'm going to use smart routing, which is going to follow the known trails. And I'll start here from this particular trailhead, and I'll just start clicking, and you can see it's following those trails pretty darn closely. And it's creating an elevation profile as I go. And I get about there, and then I'm going to say, go ahead and close the loop. So now I've just created a 10.71 mile loop hike. Doesn't have a whole lot of elevation gain, but you know, it kind of fits the bill for what I want to do. So I can now go in and I can give this a description. I can add some notes. I can decide whether it's public or private. And I can say this is going to be Badlands. Whoop. I don't know, let's see, I'll call it something like that. And I can save my map. I've just saved that. And so again, it goes into, this list, all of my lists, the maps that I've created. And I'll use things like this to help me plan, especially if I'm doing a multi-day trip. I want to know not just the route of, say, the Teton Crest Trail, but I want to know the route from the trailhead to where we're going to be camping on the first night, to where we're going to be camping on the second night. And I want to know each day the breakdown of mileage and elevation gain and loss. All of those details are important to me. So this is where I'll use a tool like this to help me craft a route for myself, and a great tool for that. All right, let's maybe shift gears here. I'm going to just take a quick look here. For those of you who have joined recently, if you could, in the chat, let me know where you're joining from. And I mentioned this at the beginning, but we will be giving away a free 12-month subscription to AllTrails Plus to somebody who can answer our challenge question at the end of this, though. Should be fun. All right. I'm going to shift over to the app. And if I can figure this out, let's see. Here we go. And with luck, this is going to pop. Oh, wow. Here we go. So give me a thumbs up, those of you who are on video, if you can see my my screen. Okay, great. So I have a few different apps on here. I've got Gaia GPS, which I mentioned I use quite a bit. I have Garmin EarthMate, which I use with my Garmin InReach to be able to send messages if I'm in the backcountry. I've got the Social Hiker app, and I've got AllTrails. And so I'm going to just open up AllTrails, and same kind of thing. I'm signed into this, and this time it somehow knows where I am, thankfully. It's going to show you the top trails nearby. It's going to show you, some best views. I can browse by activity or whatever. Or I can go by the map like I did on my laptop, and I can kind of see, like different trails around, and I can expand on that and see, oh yeah, Tumalo Creek Trail. I love that one. 5.2 miles out and back. Similarly, we can see the map, we can see trail conditions. Those plus features are identified with the little hexagon with the blue plus sign. And same kind of idea. When I click this, just like it did on my laptop, it's going to give me a 3D satellite view preview of what that hike looks like. And you can see a running total of the distance and the elevation gain. This one's is mostly flat, or pretty flat. So not that interesting. If I were to do something else, let's see, let's go back to the map area. This would be more interesting. Let's take a look at the preview of this one in Smith Rock. Really beautiful area. And again, I can zoom in kind of live and then hit play again. Climbing up Misery Ridge, climbing all the way back down to the river on the opposite side, going around the backside, and climbing all the way up to the junction at the we're going up the Summit Trail here to the junction with the Gray Butte Trail, and then down Burma Road, back all the way down to the Crooked River. And, it's just a kind of a great way for us to get a sense of, what this hike looks like, and if this is something I might want to tackle. I can see that the total length is 6 miles. It's got 1,774 feet of elevation gain. It's a really nice way for me to get that information. It's going to show you some weather forecast. You can see UV index, daylight, sunrise, sunset. Also pretty useful. The daylight's going to be the most accurate. The weather is accurate as any weather app, I guess. the one thing that you have to be careful about, or that I warn people about, is the reviews. And I always take them with a little bit of a grain of salt. Sometimes it's useful to see recent conditions. Like this one from Skylar says, there's red ants along the trail. That's kind of nice to know. Or there's almost no traffic on the backside, which is also good to know if you're looking to get away from the crowds. Make sure you pay attention to signposting because the trail goes through private land, etc. Where it gets a little iffy is when they start saying whether it's difficult or easy, because everybody has a different opinion of that, right? And so you have to kind of take that with a grain of salt and know what your capabilities are as far as distance and vertical gain and all of that sort of thing. All right, so once we're in the app, a few things that you want to look at. If I'm going out on a big hike and I may or may not have cell service, this is where AllTrails Plus is critical. I can go to my lists. Let's say, we have a list here for the Central Oregon 6-pack. I could pick the South Sister Trail, and I can say, this is great. This is the trail. I can preview it if I want, but I can also click this download button. And once I say I want to download it, I can choose which of these different maps I want. I'll go ahead and pick the, continue. Yeah, okay, so I'm downloading the AllTrails map. I could also choose to download this USGS topo map or the satellite map, but I think I'll just stick with that. And what that's going to do is it's going to mean that I can go into airplane mode when I'm out on the trail, so I'm not wearing down my battery, and I can still access the GPS track and the map data that supports that. So, here's the track, here's what it looks like here's what it kind of looks like in 3D. You can see this one's almost 5,000 feet of climbing. It's a heck of a climb. And if I want to navigate this, I can simply click the start button. I'm not there, so it's not going to let me do that, but it will actually give you kind of like, if you have navigation in your car, it'll give you turn-by-turn directions. It'll tell you when you're off track, or if you get to a junction and you turn left when you should have turned right, it'll send you a little message on the screen here to like, hey, dummy, get back on, look at your map and get back on track. So kind of I wouldn't say it's foolproof, but it's kind of a nice to have feature. The other thing that I like about this kind of about the app is that there's also this directions button. I use Apple Maps. I have CarPlay in my vehicle, and so I'll just open up Apple Maps. It's going to calculate the directions. It's going to take me 56 minutes to get to the trailhead. Well, and that's if I leave now, and I can hit go, and it's going to, if I have this hooked up to my car, it's going to give me turn-by-turn directions to the trailhead. So super handy way for me to get that information. Another way, like if I have a list that I'm working on, like this, I'm doing the Central Oregon 6-pack of Peaks Challenge. So far I've done, let's see, Sutton Mountain twice. I've done Black Butte twice, and I haven't done Mount Bachelor. They're still skiing. Maiden Peak, Black Crater, the road's not open yet. Belknap, the road's not open yet. Mount Bailey still got snow. I could probably do Tom, Dick, and Harry with some snow shoes or micro spikes. And South Sister, I wouldn't even attempt yet. Probably not until mid-July. But I have them all here, and I can go very easily and click a little arrow button, say I want to download the maps. So I have them all on my phone, and I'm ready to go at any point. Don't need to rely on cell servers for that. The other thing that you can do if you are navigating a route is that you can click the little ellipsis And you can do with the AllTrails Plus what they call a lifeline. And I can turn on my lifeline, say, oh yeah, I'm going to do the South Sister Trail. I'm starting at whatever, excuse me, I'm starting at a particular time. I can specify the time. I can specify when I'm doing it and when I'm expected to finish it. And I can identify safety contacts, and I can add multiple, and just they'll get a little message saying, you know, you're my safety contact for this. You can see where I'm going to be going, when I plan to be back. You can track my progress. So if I have cell service and I'm using this for navigation, it's going to report that back. On that particular trail, you're not going to have cell service for a good portion of it. At least I won't. So another great feature for that. Let's switch gears one more time. I'm going to stop my share of that. I'm going to check. Oh, wow. We got a ton of people in here. I'm so glad you guys could join. We've got Mark, Carl, Raul, Constance, Gregory, Morena, Veronica, Irma, Julia. Thank you guys for joining. This has been awesome. Okay. I mentioned that I was going to share a little bit about like the difference between AllTrails and Gaia GPS. I've used Gaia for a lot longer, and I think that'll be clear in just a moment here. Let me just share my screen again. So here we are in AllTrails. If I were to switch over to Gaia, I mentioned earlier that we're planning a trip to hike across the country of England in 2 weeks. And this is kind of what that looks like, you know, so we see kind of where that is. But if I zoom out and kind of go back to home, you know, like you can start to see like all the different places I've hiked or biked or, you know, done things around. And that's one of the things that I kind of love about, you know, about Gaia, is that it's going to track all of my adventures all over the place. AllTrails also will do this, but I've been doing this for a lot longer on Gaia. So it has a lot of the same functionality as far as like creating a route, you know, saving things, also downloading maps. So I can go in and I can pick a I can pick a route. So this is my final day, and I can choose that I want to, it's going to remember this on the app as well. So when I go to the Gaia GPS app, I can say I want to download the maps for this area. So I don't have to be in range of cell service. I can access all of that. Let's see, what else can we talk about here? We talked about using it on your computer as a tool to help you plan hikes. We talked about how to download routes and maps to your phone for offline use. I mentioned it, I'm not going to mention it again. It's super important when you're hiking in areas without cell service. So if you're just doing something around town or in civilization, not so much where you have defined cell service, that's not such a big issue. But anytime you get into backcountry, that's not a given. We talked a little bit about the differences between AllTrails and Gaia GPS. Gaia GPS was purchased 2 years ago, I think, by Outside Plus. So Outside Magazine, Backpacker Magazine. If you have a subscription to Outside Plus, that can include Gaia GPS. So that might be a reason that would tip the scale towards that. In both apps, you can explore the trails in 3D. It's still a lot of fun to go in and do that. So like I could do that in here, or I can do that on on here. Just simply click 3D, and well, there it is. I'm in 3D mode. So it's just kind of a great way to be able to experience the trail in a different, different dynamic. Now, paper maps, I mentioned that there's reasons why you want to carry a paper map. Probably the most obvious one is that, phones can die. You can lose battery, and if you're relying that as your only way for getting around, then you might be stuck. So it's always good to have a paper map especially if you're in the backcountry in an area where you might be hours away from a trailhead or a road. And if something happens, you need to get out of there. If there's a wildfire that shuts down the route that you had planned to do, and you need to take an alternate, and you've downloaded a particular route and you can't follow that route anymore, that's where a paper map becomes super useful, because you can start to see other options available to you. And that's something that you should probably go through in your planning as well. I like, you can do, as I showed you with AllTrails Plus, you can sort of create your own little formatted, 8.5 by 11 or legal size maps and print those out. Those are sometimes convenient for planning, but most of the time what I like to do is get a larger format map on water resistant paper. Pretty much every REI will carry a number of these, and they're foldable. They don't weigh a lot, and you can get them for a particular area or region. For example, I carried one of these when I did the Wonderland Trail, and it gave me, a lot more detail about, where I was crossing water, and it gave me the topo and all of that stuff. I still used my phone for a lot of it, but when you're sitting down and kind of soaking in, what you just accomplished for that day at the end of the day in camp, or you're looking forward to, like, what do you have next, coming up tomorrow? I find that a map is a much better tool. And it's also a better tool when you're sitting around with your friends and you want to share and look at that together. So really valuable to have those. And I have a whole shelf full of maps from the different places that I go, and it's super important to have those. Also, as important as carrying it, though, is knowing how to read it, and knowing like what the topo lines mean, and where the high points, and when you're going uphill and when you're going downhill. And that's sort of where I think AllTrails and Gaia GPS can be helpful to help you learn a little bit about those, what those topo lines mean. And that's where those 3D views can really help. The reviews we talked about a little bit. Sometimes, just like anywhere on the internet, people can be really snarky in their reviews. And so I like to take them all with a grain of salt. Community generated content is from the perspective of a single person. And so you can't necessarily, believe every review. You have to try to draw your own conclusions based on your own experience, and look at things like the conditions of the trail, the total elevation gain, the total elevation, what's the high point of the trail, and the mileage that you're doing, water sources, all of those kinds of things kind of come into play, less than the reviews. All right, I'm going to stop my screen for just a moment and just kind of take a look here. Anybody have any questions about AllTrails or tracking with GPS that that you'd like to go in a little bit deeper on? And if you do, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask, or post it in the chat, whichever you're more comfortable with.
Jeff, I had a question. I've been using AllTrails on the phone for a couple of years now, and it's been fine tracking the hikes, but I don't know, there's been a couple of updates to the app itself and also to the iPhone. And over the last month for 2 months. When I go out, I find that it's not tracking the elevation gain properly. It'll go up and down as I'm going instead of you're getting a total, accumulation as you go, as it should be displayed. That's the way it's always displayed. The other thing I'm finding is that as you hike with your phone, you stick it in a pocket or you stick it in your pack or whatever, and then you pull it out, at various times during the hike, and that's kind of how I've used it all along. But now and it's been able to track, and you can pull it out and you'll see exactly where you are. All the information is accurate. But what I'm getting now is when I pull it out, all the information is wrong, and you'll get a direct line, as the crow flies kind of thing from point to point, if you even get that. So I'm just wondering if that's there's a bug or something happening with whether it's AllTrails or whether it's the phone updates, or if, I've been searching, trying to figure out what's, if other people on the internet are having issues with it, but I can't find any answers.
Yeah. Oh, well, David, great question. I think I'll take this in two parts to give you two answers to this. Firstly, it's technology, and there's lots of things that can go wrong, right? I mean, it can be, like you mentioned, it could be an iPhone or a phone update, or it could be something with their software. But when you're talking about tracking GPS data in particular, there's a lot of things that can interfere with that, including tree coverage or the sort of the geography. If you're in a steep canyon, that can kind of block some of the GPS satellites, because basically what it's doing is your phone is communicating with the satellites out in space. And there's a number of these GPS satellites circling the globe, and depending on where the satellite is and in relation to where you are, if you're in the shadow of a steep ravine or something like that, it could give you inaccurate information, or it could even give you something like you saw, like a straight line from point to point, because it's lost a connection to the satellite for a period of time. That could also be impacted by where you put your phone. And it could be, like some people will say, yeah, I don't like to stuff it deep in my pocket or whatever because of that very reason. I don't have I unfortunately can't give you the answer for that. I can just tell you what I do. I typically am carrying this in my back pocket, my phone in my back pocket, or in a like a fanny pack, or a hip pocket on my backpack. And so it's like probably most people, so I'm not doing anything unusual there. Most of the time it's pretty good, but not all of the time. And I have some buddies that I go backpacking with every year, and we'll all be tracking on our respective GPS devices. And without, we're all doing the same trail, more or less. There might be a little bit of deviation, for a bathroom break or something like that. But otherwise, we're all following the same trail. We're camping in the same place each night. And without fail, we all have different data. Like the mileage might vary by a mile, or the elevation might vary by 500 feet or something odd like that. And so I think one of the things to kind of keep in mind is that it's not 100% accurate. It's not going to be 100% perfect. It's going to give you sort of that ballpark, and that's kind of what you have to go by. That's one of the things that's kind of good about using a laptop for doing the planning in advance, is because the data that they've got is sort of aggregate data from many hikes on a trail. And so it's averaging those distances and giving something that's going to be much closer to the actual distance than what you might get in any one reading when you go out on a hike. So, if you have that information before you go, then at least you have that to lean back on.
So I've been doing a lot of that, and it's the thing that's weird to me is that I'm on trails that I've I've done several times before, and it's now all of a sudden I don't feel like I'm doing anything different. Maybe it's in my pocket a little bit longer,
Mhm.
or in my hip pocket, as you say, basically at the same exact place. And it's now all of a sudden, it's not. It's really kind of not functioning when I'm out there, and sometimes can't even place me. And I do know that there's inconsistencies and all that because I've experienced that, but um, in the past, and you will when you're out with other people, you get different readings. But this just feels like something.
I have an idea about that. I had an older phone that was really bad with GPS, and it's possible that if your phone is maybe it's getting a little bit older, it might not be working as well as it used to.
So I have the latest one, and I updated it. It got that in the fall, and was hiking a lot
Oh,
in the fall, and it was fine. And it's literally feels like in the last 2 months with
wow.
stuff again. So
So
maybe it's an anomaly. I'll try. Yeah.
yeah, a couple things that I do from a troubleshooting perspective. One of the first things that I'll do if I'm having problems with a particular app is I will actually delete the app from my device
That's not bad.
and then I reinstall it. And that might just reset things. Sometimes that is what you need to do. I'm not AllTrails support, so I can't really uh,
Yeah.
provide much more than that. But I know that sometimes I'll do that. What I have on the screen here is the support for AllTrails. So there is a site where it's support.alltrails.com, and they have troubleshooting information. They can how do I send a crash or a bug report, that kind of thing. GPS errors on Android, etc. Why do my activity stats change after syncing? Lots of different issues that might come up. This gives you some place to start, and then of course you can send reports to, whether you're on iPhone or Android, what apps you're using and that kind of thing. So you might be able to get some help from them. I can't promise anything. I've never had to use their support, so I don't know how responsive they are or whatever, but this is kind of nice that they have this, at least, because they can talk. It talks about things like, AllTrails Plus, some of the features, downloading maps, Lifeline, the different, I didn't even talk about the AllTrail maps details. So let's actually talk about that for a second. Let me go back here and we'll just go into, I don't know, I'll pick an area here. We'll zoom way out. And one of the things that you can do on here is on these little layers, I can pick the maps that I want to use, but on AllTrails Plus, I can also see a heat map, which will show me what trails AllTrails users are using the most in a given area. And I think I might have to wait a moment. I don't know why that's not, maybe because of where I'm at. Let's see, let's go back to explore. Okay. So I'm going to zoom way out here and I'm going to make sure that this heat map is on. There we go. So you can kind of see where, the areas that a lot of people are hiking. And so if you're trying to avoid people, for example, you can start to like zoom in and see, oh, this place, not as popular as this area up here, South Lake Tahoe. And it can be an interesting way for you to, get away from the crowds if you're trying to avoid that. That's one of those additional map details things. Another is air or weather. They also have air quality, which is super useful when there's wildfires burning. Light pollution and pollen. So, springtime, pollen's happening in a lot of places. If you're allergic and, it really wreaks havoc with you, that's a layer you can turn on. Light pollution would be interesting if you want to go see like an asteroid shower or whatever. We can open that up and we can see the areas affected by light pollution kind of show up. They really pop out on the map here. And so we can see if I go to, you know, pretty much almost anywhere in Nevada, it's gonna be pretty dark. Or southeastern Oregon is gonna be pretty dark.
I got it muted.
What?
So lots of other little features that are available with AllTrails Plus. I'll reset that. And there we are. All right. Thanks for the question, David. Sorry I wasn't able to like give you the definitive answer, but hopefully that'll help. Again, you know, oftentimes just actually deleting the app entirely from the device and then reinstalling it. Because all that stuff is synced with their website and your account, you won't lose any of your maps or any of that data. It'll come back, but it might take a little bit for that, depending on how many maps you've downloaded and that sort of thing. Tommy was saying he tried to use an Apple Watch, and I don't know if you were talking about with AllTrails. I have an Apple Watch. I don't use it with AllTrails typically, but I do use just the Apple Watch, and I'll do tracking with that just for recording GPS data. And that's worked pretty well for me. But all right, any other questions before we go to our challenge question? And
I just have a general question about the I have the free version of AllTrails. I've also had a few years I've had Gaia. It's sort of the mid-level. They don't have that level anymore, but I'm grandfathered in for a couple more years on that. I'm able to do the offline maps and some of the features that you mentioned on the AllTrails Plus, but I'm wondering about just functionality. If the AllTrails, the free version works basically, other than the feature difference, does it work like out on the trail more or less the same, you know, navigating and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so you have to kind of look at the when you look at the app or the website, you'll see some of the things that are different, like the navigation where it prompts you if you get off route is an AllTrails Plus feature. The offline maps is an AllTrails Plus feature. So there's a number of things that are sort of the plus features. If you're just using it as a research tool, I think using the free version works really well because you can do all the planning and stuff beforehand. You can't do the printed maps, but you can do, like you could do a screen grab or something like that, or you can, you know, use that along with a paper map and kind of, you know, highlight the trail that you're doing, that kind of thing. So there's a lot you can do with the free version. You don't necessarily need to use the AllTrails Plus. Okay. Nancy's asking how you create a route that is not a set route like bushwhacking, and that's a great question. So you can do that as well. So if I go into my maps, I'll show you how that works. Oh, I need to share my screen. Let me do that. Let's see, where'd everyone go? Here we go. All right, so I can go to my maps. Here we are. I can create a new map. I can draw on the map. Basically, the thing that you're going to want to do is use what they call you turn off the smart routing. So we can turn that off, and now I can just start drawing, you know, like on here where I want to go. So I can say, well, I'm going to start on, you know, on this road, you know, right about here where this trail intersects. And maybe I'm going to follow, you know, this sort of basic route. And I'm going to climb up this butte. And let me resize this a little bit. So you can see my elevation profile comes in. It still brings in all that data, I may or may not be able to follow that route exactly. And then I can go in here and I can say, I want to double back. So, I want to reverse. Wait, no, double back and save that. And there's my route. So you can see, I go up, I climb, I come back down, end up at the end. That may or may not be exactly something I can follow. It's not, I would want to take a look at maybe the 3D view. And obviously this is going to be really steep right up that butte going straight up, as it reflected there. And let's see, where are we? Yeah, so I can kind of see a little bit, what that looks like. If I go back to the 2D view, I might want to look at the satellite view and just get a sense like, oh, I'm going over this lava flow. That's not going to be fun. Might not want to do that, So the short answer, yes, you can do plan a bushwhacking route by just turning off that what they call smart routing. And the smart routing, by the way, gives you some options as well. So you can decide if you're going to go from point to point and you're going to hike, it's going to give you more flexibility than if you're road biking, for example, where it's going to follow only roads that you can bike on, that kind of thing. So hopefully that answers your question. Tommy's asking, is there a way in Gaia to select an area and download for offline use? Yes, there is. Let's see if I can show that as well. I don't know of a way to do this in AllTrails. So if that's your question, unfortunately, I don't know. You can select a route and it's going to pick the map area for that route to download, and some border around it, some margin. In Gaia, you have an ability to do much more. So I could pick on a particular route in here, and I can download, if I'm in the app, I can download the maps for that, and it'll let me draw a rectangular box around that area, and it'll download whatever map layers I want. And for Gaia on bushwhacking, you can do the same thing. You don't have to follow known routes. Okay. All right, well, folks, I'm going to wrap it up with one question. We're going to give away, as I said, thanks for hanging in there tonight. We're going to give away a 1-year subscription to AllTrails Plus, and I'm going to give you a challenge question. You're going to have to use the chat to answer, so don't shout it out. It's going to be whoever gives me the correct answer in the chat. And let me pull up. Okay, so here we go. There are 17 challenges in the 6-Pack of Peaks Challenge series. We talked about the 6-pack at the beginning of this session. The first person to type in the correct answer in the chat wins the 12-month AllTrails Plus subscription. The question is, give me the name and the elevation in feet of the highest peak across all 17 challenges in the 6-Pack of Peaks series. So just one peak that's the highest. It could be in any of those challenges, but we're looking for the one that's the highest, the name and the elevation. First person to answer that in the chat. Mark says Humphreys, not correct. It's not the highest. That is the highest in Arizona. Wheeler's the highest in New Mexico. but that's not it. And we're also looking for the elevation, the correct elevation. Gorgonio is the highest peak in Southern California, but it's not even the highest peak in California. It is not the highest across all 17 challenges. Good guesses from Mark, Eric, Tommy, and other Mark. Okay, I'll give you guys a hint. Think about a state that has a lot of 14ers. Mount Shasta is high. It is not in the challenge per se. So we actually have Helen Lake, which is just above 10,000 feet on Mount Shasta, is in the Northern California Challenge, but the summit of Mount Shasta is not. Constance is getting warm. We're looking for the name of the peak and the elevation. Gwen has guessed Timpanogos in Utah. No, that's very high, but we're looking for one that's over 4. Yes, Tommy Lem, got it. All right. Mount Elbert in Colorado, 14,439. It's the highest point in Colorado. And it's also in our Colorado Rockies 6-Pack of Peaks challenge. It's one of 12 peaks in that challenge that you can choose from. So congratulations, Tommy. Tommy, if you could send me a message with your email address, and I will connect with you to get you your AllTrails Plus subscription. Congratulations, dude. All right, folks. Hey, thanks everybody for joining tonight. I hope this has been helpful. Hopefully you've learned, 1 or 2 things that you didn't know before about AllTrails, AllTrails Plus, with a little side helping of Gaia GPS. And we actually are going to have another happy hour next week that's for the 6-Pack of Peaks challengers. If you're in the 6-Pack of Peaks challenge, this is a great way for you to kind of like connect and, share where you're at in the process, ask questions, share advice, tips, find other people to hike with, any of that sort of stuff will go. It's very informal. So that'll be a lot of fun. And we'll be doing those monthly. Next month, we're going to be talking about hiking with pets. I hike with 2 dogs sometimes. And so a lot of people like to bring their dogs along on hikes and things like that. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and how to be safe with that. So we'll see you next month. All right. Have a good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining.